Well, here we are. We were waiting for John to do a show, and I'm back in the production room, and Douglas is looking gorgeous as usual. And who should be here is John, but he's not here. But I think that's supposed to be because I've had something on my mind for a while, Douglas, that I wanted to say to our audience, talk about to our audience. And I think this would be a segue into it because that's what I wanted to talk to John about at the very beginning of our video. You see, I heard one of our favorite people who hangs on the cliff, it's high, he's on the cliff, you know what I mean? And he's talking about meditation. And I'm listening to this video and I said, I can't believe what he's saying about meditation. I said, Douglas, listen to this. Because Douglas knows that there's many practices of meditation, not just my way, which is really the best way, but not my way. And so I said, what do you think about this? And Douglas says, oh, no, I've never heard that type of meditation, which gets me to a point that I think we need to do a series that's like really, I don't want to say a lower level, but like just really taking everything down to the essence to describe to people how to do these things. Like I have a great lesson on how you meditate and then the results of meditation. I don't think people really understand the results. Now, I've been on this journey for 40 years and I can look back on those 40 years and I can say, wow, what a spiritual journey this has been. And y'all have heard some of Douglas's stories. They're amazing. Those were the interviews with an exorcist. If you haven't heard those, you might want to catch up on them because really what Douglas is doing here is he's describing his spiritual adventure as a young man up to this point where who he is today. Well, I too have a spiritual journey. And so do all of you in this audience. And you're on a spiritual journey. But wouldn't it be great if while you're on this journey, you had two people like us as your spiritual Sherpas to show you some pro tips along the way? But the reason I wanted to talk to John, and he's not here, my mentor in anthroposophy, an older woman, she told me, and somewhere I had read in anthroposophy, that you don't share your personal experiences. That's a no-no. But yet, I got a lot of value out of being an entrepreneur and being in an organization where we shared our experiences. We didn't put our opinions on people, but somebody might come to the forum table and say, I have an issue. Okay. I've heard about this spiritual path and I'm not really sure what these stages are: preparation, initiation. What can I expect? Does anybody here in the forum know? And those that may have experience then talk about their experience. They don't say you should do this or you shouldn't do that. There's no judgment. It's just each member goes around and says their experience. And what is helpful is people who are listening, who may have never had these thoughts before, begin to think about this. What? There's a journey I haven't taken? And of course, our entrepreneur friends, as we know, Douglas, they're young jet setters and they go everywhere and travel everywhere. And when they heard that we were on a journey that they had never thought of, remember how they all wanted to go on that journey. Oh, yes. So I think we have a lot to share, but I wanted to talk to John and to you about what would be the parameters I'd have to set in order not to violate any anthroposophical ideals.
Violate all you want. I think people really want to hear what you have to say. And it is about the journey. That's what all of this is about. And the journey is individualized, completely individualized. But when you hear somebody else's journey, like John Bunyan's Pilgrim's Progress, this character Christian going from the city of destruction to the celestial city, it's the same journey we're all on, but it will be quite different for each one of us. And so we have a book coming out on meditation. So you and I should probably do a talk on that.
The point that I wanted today was to talk to John to see, would it be okay that I explain some of my experiences and some of the things that I came away with that may not fit into that Steiner box? Because I know you two are scholars. I'm just a student. So what do you think?
I think that's absolutely perfectly appropriate.
Okay, well, let me get started.
Okay.
I'm telling you, I have a big thing I want to share with our audience. Okay. And I need you here to make sure I stay in the lanes. And the reason is, if people think that's kind of funny, but here's the deal. In spiritual science, when you share something with someone, you have to make sure that that idea is, you've really examined it, because if you don't and you cause harm to another person, that's karma that you're going to have to work out down the road. So when I'm saying these things, I'm telling you about people out there, my cat friends. I'm telling you about my personal experience. You will have your own experience. I'm not suggesting you have to have an experience like mine. Does everybody get where I'm going here? My experience. Here's my experience. I have the keys to get us out of this matrix. And Douglas and I have been unlocked. We have unlocked the doors a while back. We know where the keys are, and we know how you can use the keys. And it all starts with something called meditation. But when you listen to New Age people throughout the years, you might not ever come away with what I'm getting ready to tell you about meditation. You think this is okay, Douglas?
Yeah, absolutely.
Okay. So if y'all remember, back in the day, I used to have something called the Ascend diet that was on our website. And what I wanted to show you, because I'm a naturopath, but I was seeing as a spiritual seeker that there seemed to be a relationship between the chakras on my body, the processes that were going on in that body, and the process of ascension. So I was really paying attention to this. And as we wrote the second volume of the Gospel of Sophia, Douglas was guiding me and showing me things that I hadn't considered before and why this phenomena was happening. And I'm not going to talk about the Gospel of Sophia, Volume 2. I really want to get down to the nuts and bolts of how this works. The three lower chakras I would consider to be the sex chakra, the digestive chakra, and the one right above it in the solar plexus, kind of where fear and anxiety hang out. Now, different chakra charts will show you different placements, but this just gives you a visual representation of what I'm going to share. So you have to start clearing this astral energy. And I think that's the part of preparation. Would you say that that's preparation in the process of spiritual journeying? So
Absolutely.
you have to prepare yourself. You have to prepare your body. Literally, you do. And so what the globalists do, let's just call it that. We know it's a Pilgrim Society, Babylonian, Radhanites, Synagogue of Satan, all of it, but we're going to call them the globalists. They know that if you unlock this secret, they can never hold you back again. You'll never be their prisoner. So they're going to keep you locked in your lower chakras. So in the sex chakra, they've got us, well, it started with feminism, where women, no longer wanted to have babies. And it winds up today with this strange transgenderism. And the whole sex thing, the chakra is just way out of whack. Instead of this beautiful flower lotus, I mean, people's sex chakra, if you go out in public, it's just disturbing. You have to clear that energy up before you take that energy and raise it up, because all of that drama that's going on in that chakra requires your vitality, your life energy to keep it going. And then you said something the other day about how it's time for the angels to let go of us and let us take care of these organs ourselves. So we have to consciously work on our sex organs. And what's really good is when you get old like us and you forget you even have that chakra anymore, okay? So we're taking it really high. So these books that we're creating, in a way, is the result. They're like our children, but we've moved that energy from our sex chakra up higher. Now, the next one is a big one. It's the digestive area. And as you know, the globalists have us poisoned with everything that we're eating. And I have a lot to say about that, but suffice it to say, you've got to find a way to make the digestion in your body less taxing to your vital energies. And when you do that, then you've got more energy to start working on your higher chakras. The next level is fear and anxiety. You know, like when you have to do something you don't want to and you get that punch in your gut, you know, right there in your solar plexus, that's fear and anxiety. Now they know that that's the last level that they have to keep us under. So this is why we're constantly being terrorized. Since I was a little girl, we had to duck and cover under our desk because of nuclear war. And if it wasn't that, it was something else. And then it was this, and then it was that. And it never stops. And the nuclear bomb thing, really, if they had one, surely it would have gone off by now. But they have to keep you in terror and fear. And that's the final chakra. So if they can keep you in those lower chakras, you're not going to find out about the secrets and the amazing power that's in the heart chakra, which when you begin to meditate and bring that energy up here, you are creating a supersensible organ of perception. What is that? You know, okay, let's see, organs of perception, you know, I can hear, I can see, I can smell. These are our organs in our bodies that we perceive the outer world. But when you develop an organ of supersensible perception, then you're able to participate in the spiritual world. Okay, I'll take a breath. What do you have to say about that?
That's absolutely right. And all of this is basically preliminary for initiation. So this is preparation. And then, of course, you can do renunciation and oblations and devotion and start with awe and wonder and all this kind of stuff, which is in the human body. And that's what it all comes back to. We were going to talk about the threshold. That's in the human heart, the guardian of the threshold, your angel of the presence, your guardian, the angel that watches over you. All of that is in your body. And until you have control of that, and you start to, as you just pointed out, take over for what the hierarchy has been doing for you for all this time, then you are not consciously evolving.
No. And see, now this is where I love listening to you and John. When you and John talk, I'm like on a major high because I'm like seeing spiritual things that you're not even knowing what I'm seeing. It's so amazing. But I think we have to take things down a couple of levels to the practicality of why we're doing these things and how it works. Because I want people to see results. Because if we can have 48, there's that number 48 again. I want you to speak about that. 48 of us that have this awareness that I'm going to be describing. Game over. Satan can, I don't see how Satan ever defeats us at this point.
Right. Absolutely. And that is our job. We are like Michael and the dragon. The lower chakras are the dragon, and we're supposed to be the archangel Michael, or now the time spirit Michael. And we don't kill the dragon, we tame the dragon. We put it to our own uses. And in the ancient stories, who was it that tamed the dragon? The virgin. And how did she tame him? She took the golden cord off of her waist, tied it around his neck.
Would be someone who has elevated that sex chakra back to its beautiful primal flower state, which would have been to lift that energy. So you're taking that spear and you're stabbing the lower chakras and get them in line. But you have to do this on your own, right? I mean, this is part of the spiritual path. So boom, I have this enlightenment experience in 1984. I'm a young woman. I didn't know this existed. And it turns my world upside down. So what do? So every day, for year after year, I'm experiencing things, seeing things. And I finally I'm getting close to this 40-year mark on that journey. And now I see that it was a spiritual journey. And that along the way comes trials. And all of us will be going through this path, something similar, as we move out of this density that we're in into more of a 5D way of life. It's a beautiful thing. Now, let's go back to the heart. And I wanted you to say something. What was it back then? I was talking about it because you have such wisdom in that area. Well, I don't remember. But anyway, when you wrote your book on the heart, I listened to your lectures and I've listened to you talk about it, but it wasn't until I read the book that I saw that the heart is an organ that we are working on. Just at one time, we worked on our eyes with the sun, as it burned a hole in our forehead and created the eye. So this heart chakra is being developed, but it doesn't start developing much like the eye until suffering. There has to be great suffering, like a sequoia tree seed, where you've shown me before. It has to go through intense heat before the essence pops out of that seed and can become the sequoia tree. So too, we humans, we go through this great suffering, and all of us go through this suffering. Some of us have to go through it so bad. Why? Because the suffering is there to leave us with no other way other than finding ourselves in our heart with Jesus Christ. And once we do, what I noticed over meditation over all the years, I first started noticing it when I would leave my meditations within a day or two. Any problem I had seemed to have a fix. I seemed to have all these synchronicities and coincidences. Then over time, I began to notice it as a flow. And then I would say, if I had a problem or I had a need, I'd go just meditate. And then the magic would appear and there would be everything. Everything I need would come to me. Everything. You've seen it, Douglas. You've lived with me for 12 years. Just the other day, my son was saying, oh, he needs to find some yard service. It's hard to get people. I said, don't worry. The economy is going to get so bad. People are going to be knocking at your door with a business card for yard services. Anyway, I had to go walk something over to my neighbor, and I left the room, walked it over, and there in front of the yard was a guy in a truck with a card for yard services. So you see, the universe wants to give you whatever you want, but you've got to learn the key of what you're doing in the meditation. And once you have this knowledge, and nobody can take knowledge away from you, that's what's so exciting about it. The knowledge that opening up that chakra brings you everything you need. You're always in the right place at the right time. It may not seem it. You still have to go through suffering. Maybe everybody's karma is different. And then Douglas shows me this book on Journey to Arcturus. And when they describe these tentacles that came from the heart, and I'm reading his book on the heart, I'm like, that's what's happening with meditation. We're developing this organ of perception, of supersensible perception.
Absolutely. And the heart, because it is a supersensible organ of perception, what you were just talking about before, everybody's path is different. So when you're looking at that, you're seeing the supersensible influences of many of the hierarchy creating your own karma, your destiny, your providence is acting in your life. And so you see these things, as you call it, flow or being in synchronicity. Basically, what is happening is you're getting yourself out of the way and you're becoming selfless enough so that your heart can be empty enough to receive these impressions so that you can then determine really what they are for you. And they are supersensible. They are hidden. The old word used to be occulted, that it's hidden, that it's esoteric. But now, no, we are dragged across a threshold right now and everybody's facing death. Death everywhere, as you pointed out in the first beginning of this talk. It is death that basically makes us scared of the threshold. And then the whole point of spiritual development is to be able to cross that threshold. And the only way you can do that is by aligning your chakras with moral values instead of vices. We're real good at the vices. It's the moral values and virtues that we have to develop. And those, as you pointed out, anything below the heart, that's kind of the dragon in you. And yes, you need to learn to control that dragon and tame the dragon and use its forces for good. But from the heart to the throat to the brow to the crown, that's the path of the future with the chakras. And that is the path that leads you into the spiritual world.
Right. I just got a text from John. You were correct. He's with his 33 boxes of esoteric books trying to find places for them. So, but that's okay, because I still think we needed to go through this. I really want to hear people's opinions about what we're saying. We're suggesting that perhaps we're missing a whole segment of information that would be valuable to you. So when you have this organ developed, you don't worry about where things are going to come from you're in a flow. It's all good. And if, like I always say, I'm standing on the earth and no harm's going to come to me. So this earth, at least in my lifetime, is not going to blow up because no harm's going to come to me. And America is collapsing right and left, but where I'm standing, no harm's going to come to me. And in fact, what Douglas and I have noticed when we started awakening to this organ and how it works is that our home has become more beautiful. People there, we have some members of our 48 who have come to visit us, and they may attest in the comments below. We live in a beautiful home and a beautiful property. It keeps getting more beautiful. My community around me is getting more beautiful. The friends, the neighbors, things are getting more beautiful. Why? Because this is a reflection of who I am. And if I'm not going to be harmed and my world's going to be beautiful, then so be it. And it can happen for you. And if 48 of us stand our ground wherever we are, it's going to be very difficult for Satan to take us over. Okay, now, that's not the only chakra. Then you move up. And then in this area up here, what's this area in your chest area called?
Well, that's where the thymus is, but the throat chakra.
I'll just say, I'm just saying, let's just say it's right in this area. So what happens here is you become aware that you have a spiritual coat of armor, and you become aware that this is actually created through your many lifetimes and karma. Now, the church, traditional church, Catholics, that racket, they don't, well, I guess it's the other ones too. They do not want you to know that you reincarnate and you have karma. Because if you did, you would start being a good person, because everything you're doing today is going to be a result in the future. So if you know that, you'll stop dead in your tracks right now and start being good. And those of us who can feel our spiritual coat of armor, we see it working in our lives all the time. You who are listening to me, you're here. You've been protected. Your whole life you've been protected. I look at my life and I see situations that I should be dead. And I was protected. I am a protected person. Why? Because through my karmic path, I have built up a spiritual coat of armor, and you can start yours almost immediately. And meditation is a doorway to that. You have any comments about that chakra?
Yes, as I was just reading yesterday in some early lectures of Rudolf Steiner, that the first principle of spiritual development is to have armor that covers your heart and your chest.
Oh, I didn't know that.
I didn't know it either.
Oh, but see, that's why I want to feel free to tell you what I experience, and then you tell me the anthroposophy behind it.
And then he says, along with that, which is, of course, you pointed at the thymus, that's the heart. The thymus controls the heart chakra. Then here, when you go to the throat, really, what are you working with? You're working with speech, aren't you? Speech, which is also connected to hearing. And then, so what comes out as the first thing that you get? The two-edged sword of truth, the word of Christ, the logos. So you get this armor to protect your heart and basically make it a sanctuary. And then you get the two-edged sword, which that's in the apocalypse, of course, that shows that the victory is about to happen. So there you have the next chakra, which is your voice. Your throat chakra is basically, and your thinking and your hearing. This is really where you are working with the powers of reaching out to other people, communication.
This is amazing. I hadn't considered that chakra, and I was wondering what would be there. But what have we been doing for the last 10 years is using our voice to do truth. And when you say this truth coming out and it's a sword, well, that is the truth that drives down into your lower chakras, and we ascend. I took the Ascend diet down, though, because it was nagging me about how I saw it working at that time. You see, I had been brainwashed, like many of you, that meat eating is not humane and all of the things that go in with that. But I started going more carnivore back in February, and the results that I have seen for the energy that's coming in these higher chakras is unbelievable. And I want to say it's because in my experience, the less we require our digestive systems to work and use our vital energy, the more we have the energy for the higher chakras. And the most perfect meat to eat for a human being is ground beef. Now, I'm not saying you can't have your vegetables. We do have our vegetables and all that. And I'm not saying anything about your diet. I'm just talking about me. Once I started finally eating meat, and all I really do is eat about 4 ounces of ground beef a day, my digestive system was no longer being worked by eating salads and carrots and roots and things that have, roots in the ground. And it was freed up. Well, what's happening is my digestive system is now outside of me. It's now with the cow, this most beautiful, incredible animal, and how it digests food. And in the end, we eat its flesh. But I couldn't see that when I wrote the Ascend diet, but we have to be connected to the animal flesh. And to the person who asked me on this site recently, what do I do about this carnivore diet? Please speak to it, and the spirituality of being a vegan. See, there's another topic I think we should talk about. Okay, you can talk. Husband and wife stuff,
Even Rudolf Steiner, who basically started off with the ideas of theosophy when he was a teacher, said, being a vegetarian is imperative. And later he said, no, it's not. And even later than that, he said, only a person who has very good health can be a vegetarian. Otherwise, it will actually make you ill. And so if you're a sick person or you're old, you may need the help of having the full protein presented to you. Because Rudolf Steiner points out that everything that you eat or drink is a poison. You must overcome it, including water. Mm-hmm. So even air, everything is a poison. So you must choose your poisons wisely. Some people can handle drinking coffee all their life. Others can't drink one tiny bit of it without having their kidneys freak out. So we are all individual, just like the path you're talking about, and just like the development of the chakras that you're talking about. And essentially what this is all about is facing the guardian of the threshold who says, oh, human being, know yourself, and you will know the world and the gods. And that's what your chakras do. They are basically antennas, broadcasting and receiving antennas. And they're tuning into the 7 planets, which are in fact 7 hierarchical beings called the Elohim.
And you will read about this. People will read about this in reading your books and in Steiner about the movement of the chakras. So imagine that they're lotus petals on these chakras. And when you begin to energize them, they begin to turn. Well, I had read that early in my spiritual journey, but I didn't really know what that meant. And here I am telling you what it means is these organs are beginning to awaken. And with that, these are the things that I have experienced. So sorry to interrupt you, but please go on, because I want to talk about the third eye opening.
In Knowledge for Higher Worlds, Rudolf Steiner goes into great detail describing these chakras and the different levels of the chakras, their physical nerve ganglia in the etheric realm. They are these lotus petals. In the astral realm, they're petals made of light. And then the ego controls them. So when you are a clairvoyant and you look at these, many people think being clairvoyant is to see someone's colored chakras. It's not as quite as simple as that. It's much, much more complicated. The human being, when you look at them, you see, as Rudolf Steiner says, a fog around them. And that fog has all this stuff moving inside of it, all these different colors and lights and flashing. And the different petals, half of them in each of the chakras came from your past. And if you didn't resolve those lower chakras, the foundation chakra, your sex chakra, your chi, your solar plexus, if you didn't resolve those in a past life, then you can't really move forward. You can't go into the new spinal column, which is the spear of Michael is your spinal column. That's where the Kundalini rises. But that's not what we're talking about. We're talking about the frontal spinal column that goes from the heart to the throat, to the brow, to the crown, which is in fact the vagus nerve, which also extends into the lower body and controls all those other chakras. So there's literally one nerve that runs through these chakras in the front of your body that connect the physical nerve ganglia, the etheric, astral, and the ego. So when we're talking about this, we're talking about your own spiritual development as well as understanding the beings in time who made those chakras for you, and understand the beings in space who ray in the energy from the back of your body into the chakras, and then it comes out the front. So being born a clairvoyant, I always saw this in people. Matter of fact, I had to learn not to see it. And let me tell you, it's some ugly, nasty stuff. Okay. People don't have pretty looking chakras. So all of you out there who just wish to heavens you could see
No,
somebody's chakras for a minute, get ready, because when
listen,
you do, you're going to probably throw up.
we know when we walk out into the world and see the people out there, it's it's wonky. I got something on there. So we see that, but now you have a name for it. Their chakras are all messed up. But also, we want to create that toroidal field that comes out from our heart, and so this is this energy that connects with the universe. And then as we move up, then we could talk that maybe there's something here, and well, the third eye, I'll call it that, and then of course the crown chakra. But with for me, my experience is that this is clear sight, that I have discernment, I have perception. I've talked to folks before about how bad I was so disturbed with what's going on in our country, and I got no answers anywhere. So I took myself, I knew I had to be there in the physical presence through a tour of the White House just to see if I could pick up what was really going on. I had no idea. And then leaving there, getting a message very clearly that I had to get some kind of spiritual protection. Now, in the end, we've explained how that journey worked and what we created. We did create the sigils as part of our protection packet. We use them all the time because there are entities. When you look at the political world and you see this theater, but that's not what's really going on. We have to go a higher level, and we see the demons and how they have entered into our institutions, and they've created demonic laws, and they were all beholden to it. So what we have to do is break out of that system. And I could go at length about how we do that, but that's what this eye is. It's giving you clear sight and discernment. And then finally, for me, the experience of the crown chakra being opened. And it's so hard for me because my crown chakra just all the time is just, and I want to get it all out, but I can't because it's so intense. But when I listen to Douglas and John speak about it, I feel like I have a better understanding of what I'm experiencing. And by the way, you look really good today. You'd look really good next to John, but he's not here.
Yeah, I'm getting healthier all the time. Thanks
Yeah,
to my
you
doctor.
do. You look great.
My doctor is very good. I highly recommend her, except she only sees me. I'm her only patient, probably because I'm such a big challenge. But yes, the third eye chakra is really your pituitary gland, which is the master control gland for your entire metabolic system. Everything in chemistry going on in your body goes to the pituitary gland. And it then right behind it, so if you look straight in, you'd see the pituitary gland, and then behind it in the fourth ventricle is the pineal gland. And we've talked quite a bit about that, but you can go into the great detail of what these things are physically, but that's not what they are spiritually. What they are spiritually is exactly what Tyler's just described. And as you meditate, the more you meditate, the more your chakras spin in the right direction, the more you take advantage of the virtuous development in the chakras that came from the past, and the way you then focus on the ones for the future, and you work on specific moral qualities, as well as the preparatory qualities for initiation and enlightenment. And enlightenment comes directly from that pineal gland, just completely blasting open sometimes. You can't tell when that's going to happen. It's sometimes called the golden moment of illumination. It's sometimes called
It's
seeing
called
the white
grace.
light.
Yeah, it's the
Grace.
Damascus experience. And if you haven't had it yet, maybe you had it in the last lifetime. You don't, but there's no mistake when you have it.
No mistake. And when you think that Buddha was trying to attain enlightenment, remember, enlightenment is only the second step on the three-step process, according to Steiner. There's preparation, there is enlightenment, and there is initiation. And the initiation will take you through what Tyler was talking about before, the earth, water, air, fire challenges that happen as you go through the chakras. Mm-hmm. Literally, exactly that, from the heart to the throat to the brow to the crown, is basically going through the four basic elements that help transform the carbon coming from your breath as you're probably told, in all paths, all spiritual paths, it all comes down to breath. Yes, it does, but not conscious breathing.
Okay, but that gets into this technical thing about meditation that I think is a turnoff to people. When you're
That's why
talking
we don't
about
do it.
breath control
We
and
don't do that in this age.
posturing and whatever, I'm
None of that
gonna
will
show
help
everybody
you.
how to meditate, how to get started. What is meditation? You can correct me that's why I have you here, to correct me. For me, my experience, meditation is clearing your mind of chatter. All day long, you're hearing chatter, 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 inner chatter, outer chatter, outer chatter, chatter. And so what you want to try to do is get yourself in a space where you stop the chatter. And it's not easy. What you do, close your eyes and imagine a pencil. And get that pencil right there. Just imagine a pencil, simple pencil. You could do it with a paper clip or a flame or something, but a pencil. Let's just choose a pencil. And you put that in your mind's eye, and you can think about the pencil. You might look at the eraser. But then your mind goes off, and you think, "Gee, you know what? I need to sharpen the pencils in my my secretary, and I need to bring it up." I know I'm using terms that probably make no sense to anybody, but you start connecting the pencil to things in your house and your life. Well, don't beat yourself up, but you just lost your concentration. So you just bring yourself back to the pencil. Go get back to the pencil. Now, after a while, you'll finally be able to spend a few moments just thinking about the pencil. If you can spend more time there, and it will take time, you have to build up to it, remove the pencil from your mind's eye. Don't say anything, Doug. And in this silence, see if you can observe thinking. Think about thinking. Oh, it'll really get you crazy high. Now you can talk. But you have to experience that space of when the pencil goes away and you're in that zone. And you might not be able to stay in that zone for a long time. I would regularly meditate in the morning for 10 to 20 minutes every day. I didn't use unusual postures. Sometimes I fell asleep. If I fall asleep, I did, but I try to sit upright. And over time, I began to notice a direct relationship between my meditations and what was happening in my external environment, which has gotten better and better and better. When I look back at the course of 40 years, I shouldn't be where I am here today. When I look at the things that are going on with women my age, and it was only through being directed and guided by Sophia that I am here today.
And it's your developed chakras that give you the ability to understand that, because you're defying space and time and consciousness when you understand the movement of the spirit over decades. But yes, you're so right. Meditation is not what
no, it's not this. It's not turning your eyes and crossing them in and looking really hard and concentrating, and there'll be pain and you'll feel the pain, and then finally you let go of the pain. I was like, okay, there's an easier way to do it.
They'll tell you, take your tongue, put it in the roof of your mouth, and then you'll feel the amrita when it comes, once you have that moment of golden illumination or enlightenment. Because each time you do, you will excrete pituitrin in your pituitary gland, and it will then enhance your nerves and your blood system, and it actually gives you a high. And the reason you put your tongue at the roof of your mouth is to stimulate your pituitary gland to cause it to excrete. Well, that's not going to happen unless you have moral development and you can tell your pineal gland to stand upright, because your pineal gland actually, it sits on top of the corpus quadragemini, and it looks like a little pine cone, but it's usually bent over, and there's an aqueduct that comes through that brings the cerebral spinal fluid from the fourth ventricle into the third, and then moves that fluid to the pituitary gland. When it stands upright, the aqueduct can flow. When it doesn't, it won't. There it is, folks. So a clairvoyant can walk up to you, look at you, looks directly into your pineal gland, and see whether or not you even have the capacity to make it stand upright. Because if you don't, your pituitary gland is not going to get excited by the energy, the bioelectric energy called piezoelectric energy that the calcium carbonate crystals in the pineal shoots across the midbrain and the inner ventricles to the pituitary gland to stimulate it. So when they say, when you were talking about your friend who said, take your eyes and cross them and it will hurt. No,
No.
meditation does not hurt.
No, it doesn't hurt.
You
But
don't
here's
you
here's
don't
the other
want
thing.
meditation to
Okay,
hurt.
so you're lifting this energy up, because what I envision is once you are at this crown chakra and your moral imaginations, everything are just feeding this. Imagine a bird bath here, and the angels. Then you're attracting the angels, and the angels come and they dip and they eat, drink this nectar, so to speak. And what do the angels leave behind? They leave behind the bigger imaginations. And then they begin to feed your chakras, and then it's like on superpower. So it's a feeding. The whole thing is a feeding nutrition system. But if you eat crickets and bugs, your digestive system is going to go so wonky, you will never ascend. So why do you think that's the agenda? And they want to get meat out of our diets. Now, this year, I made sure that I went to the farmer's market every week and visited my favorite meat vendor and talked to her. I told her I was a recovering vegetarian, so she treated me real nice. And I learned about different cuts of meat. I learned about where their farm is, because if you're talking about survival food and food that can help you bridge into the spiritual world, it's ground beef. Isn't this crazy?
Cows have 4 stomachs. They're celestial. They're the most peaceful animal on the earth. They are part of the human being, as the cow, the eagle, or the bull, as it were, the eagle, the angel, and the lion, you see. So those are different parts of the human being. And so the cow rules the stomach. And Steiner pointed out that many, many mysteries are connected to the cows that we can't even understand. They have a perfect volume balance between blood and body weight. They have all these different mysteries. But if you eat anything with an exoskeleton, like crickets and such, they are those are beings left over from the ancient moon incarnation. They are directly from the 8th sphere. You are eating evil. So you have to be careful, because the lower chakras have to be fed, of course, health. You need to be grounded. You need to have good water. You need to have good food. You need to have good relationships. You need to understand your sexuality and use that energy as your chi,
creation force.
As a creation force for that energy to create the frontal spinal column. So let's go back to meditation. Looking at the pencil, it's sometimes forgotten that the most important part is what you highlighted, which is it isn't about just how long you can concentrate on nothing but a pencil or a crystal or a paperclip. It is what happens when you take it away.
Yes.
Then you can see how your thinking process works.
But you have to think about thinking, because if you think about how you think, then you've stepped outside of that. You're just like in this zone of pure thought. And then in this pureness, the angels come and they speak to you and they guide you. And it's just a beautiful thing. I want everybody to give this a try, please, because it will unlock the prison that they have put us in our physical bodies. Our bodies should be a temple, not a prison. And one other thing, when if I talk about these experiences and everything, I don't want to carry a lot of charged words that might come from spiritual traditions, because then people go, oh, but the Bible didn't say this. No, I just want to talk experience. And what I've noticed is that whenever people in my life who are Christians feel that they need to get things resolved, they say they need to pray and fast. Well, what is that? The prayer is the meditation. It's the contemplation. Although I will say for contemplation, I was meditating on my spiritual journey, but my contemplation was getting out a good, solid Rudolf Steiner book, not a lecture, because the lectures can be scattered everywhere. A book where he wrote it cover to cover and really deep dive and study in it and look at those words and try to understand them. That's the kind of contemplation I'm talking about. And then the fasting part of it is, of course, to allow your stomach digestive system to just relax. And a lot of healing comes from actually being on some kind of fast. Why? Because your stomach can stop digesting, but also the rest of your body, because people are eating so many poisons that they have to use their white blood cells to digest the shit they're putting in their bodies. That's not good, because you can't create Ascension cells when your white blood cells are doing the digestive work that your stomach should be doing, and which a spiritually evolving person may realize that is better left to protein sources outside of your body to do the digestion, if that makes sense.
Absolutely.
Ooh,
The
I'm getting hot in here now. Give me.
enzymes from your pancreas,
Mhm.
enzymes from the food you're taking in. And by the way, neither one are complete. They need both, and then you have to create it from scratch. So that's, you're actually creating from nothingness when it really comes down to it. And that's a process of creativity that we don't understand in our digestion. Now, what Steiner said, that meditation was first was concentration. You had to be able to concentrate, like on the pencil. Then you had to be able to contemplate. Well, you take away the pencil or the image you've been thinking about for quite 10 minutes or so, 15 minutes, and then something flows in. You're not doing it. It flows in. It's a moral imagination, possibly. It's a thought of an angel, and it will give you Amrita and Soma and the nectar of the gods, the nectar and ambrosia of the gods. You will be fed. And so you will know when it's working because you will be fed, and all of your other capacities will be enhanced through this. So you go concentration, contemplation. And as Tyler just mentioned, you should contemplate on beautiful phrases like wisdom weaves in the light, or any, not I, but Christ in me, because those are supersensible. To meditate on grace, to meditate on karma. These are supersensible things you're meditating on. You're developing your organs for perception and basically building them like a muscle.
Mhm.
And then you can get to meditation. Well, meditation is an attempt to understand the alphabet of the spirit so that you can hear, so you can see. At first you see, and then you hear, and then you hear words. And so this is the process of meditation. So what is it that you see? Well, first off, if you took a red dot on a white background and you stared at it for 2 minutes, and then you close your eyes, what are you going to see? The opposite color. A brilliant, non-corporeal type of opposite color of whatever color you were looking at. And that's called an after image. Well, that's what everything is for us. All of our thinking is an after image. All of our memories are after images. So if you can learn to hang on to the after image, so one of the best meditations, if you want to enhance this capacity, is to learn to hang on to the after image of things, because in the after image, you will see the non-corporeal, the more spiritual substance that may be behind it. In many cases,
Well,
it's the
see, then you're
exact
getting to
opposite.
other levels of meditation. And I
Yes.
just want to give people who've never meditated, and well, how do you get started? Because that was my first experience when I had my enlightenment experience. I thought, oh, maybe I should meditate. So I went and sought out the gurus and the this and the that, but I didn't find an answer there. I did not find an answer to what was going on, or at least a roadmap, until I started reading Rudolf Steiner, first book, Knowledge in the Higher Worlds. Everybody ought to read that one. And then beginning to realize that, oh, this is a spiritual path. Well, how do you know if you're on a spiritual path if no one around you has been on a spiritual path? All right. And so that's why we want to be your spiritual Sherpa. We've been the road, we've walked the summit, we're back here. Let us guide you step by step. Ask us the questions that you want to know from the two of us that might help and assist you in overcoming the challenges that you'll be faced with and the glory that waits for you at the end. So I like, start meditating. You want out of this matrix, it begins with meditation.
Even stress reduction meditation has been proven to enhance all aspects of your life, even if you don't meditate on anything spiritual. So meditation, you should have something of a spiritual nature to meditate on, and then you go to the level of prayer. Now, what is prayer? Prayer is a direct communication. It isn't asking God for favors. It isn't just
I have a
praising God.
problem with prayer, though, and I always have, because I feel that God's goodness is perfect. Who am I to ask him to do him, her, this, to do anything for me or anyone? Everything is perfect. And if I see people struggling, it's probably their karma. And I can't go in there and examine that, nor do I want to, but I help where I can. But, you know,
Yeah.
I know you pray and you're a powerful prayer, but some of us can't see prayer because we feel that God's got it all under control.
Take the most common Buddhist meditation, Om Mani Padme Hum, hail thou jewel in the heart of the lotus. What are you saying? The jewel in the heart of the lotus is the wish-fulfilling stone. It's the thing that represents your enlightenment. And so you're saying, hail, enlightened being who was Buddha, you're in me also. So what is that? That's a prayer. So if you're praying to the Archangel Michael to help you overcome the dragon, Satan, and to hold him at bay and keep him behind you, that's a prayer. But the most important prayer is the prayer of listening. It isn't the prayer of vocalizing. You can visualize, you can vocalize, you can invoke, but you want to embody. You want to bring these things into you. So you are meditating, praying, concentrating on higher virtues. Why? Because you become them. For instance, if you simply say this, and you can do this exercise, I'll give you a couple simple ones. The first thing is to say something negative like, oh, I am depressed. Oh, I'm so depressed. I'm depressed. Say that about 100 to 1,000 times. Now, in Tibetan Buddhism, I had to recite things 100,000 times in a row, nonstop. That's what you do. So if you say, I am depressed, guess what? You'll only get to about 100 before you are depressed. So what if you say, I am light, I am God, I am beauty, truth, goodness, I am whatever. That's all you have to say. It's called the eternal prayer. I like the one, not I, but Christ in me.
Mhm.
Now, when it comes to concentration, here's the funny trick about your brain that I'll teach you. So simple. If you want to have emptiness, what the Buddhists are trying to get to, which is no more stress, no more fear, no more hatred and doubt, and all the things that your conscience will tell you you can't take into the spiritual world, then you need to get empty, right? But they don't tell you that later that emptiness is filled by light, by sound, beautiful music, and by words that tell you a communication with the spiritual world.
Mhm.
So it isn't just emptiness you're trying to get to. That's, one part of it. That's that thing that happens after you concentrate, then you become empty and you let it flow into you. So we used to say to people, they'd say, I try to meditate and all this comes up, I forgot to do this, forgot to do that. Oh, I said this horrible thing to this person, blah, 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 blah. Okay, tell your brain to show you everything it knows.
Wave my hand.
And you know what will happen? Your brain will go blank. Tell your brain to see nothingness and it will be filled with everything.
Yes.
That's the problem with your brain.
That's right. But that's why it's this type of mind, your own self-control.
Yeah, because as you said, the first thing, you got to stop the chatter.
Gotta stop
The chatter will just go on all day long until you face it. And that's the thing with all of this. It's facing your fears. It's facing all the bad things you've ever done. It's facing your bad thoughts, your bad feelings, your bad actions, because you're not going to take them into the spiritual world.
Now, I'm going to forget my thought again. Because when you talked about I had not thought about this chakra with the truth and everything. So I can see that. I'm going to use this as an example, as a trial or a test that came to us on our spiritual journey. Because I see this 40-year mark as like a gestation period of when the spark happened. There's something that was created there in that enlightenment experience. And the initiation process for me has been maybe a 40-year process, which is to me a gestation cycle of sorts. And so now I'm seeing the birth of something higher in me so that I don't have to go back and constantly explain the experience. I'm just who I am because of those experiences. Okay. So now what was I going to go and say? I forgot. It is profound.
It is. And if you don't get, you get results from meditation because it enhances your being. And if you aren't enhancing your being, you're just simply not doing it right.
Well, I can't remember it. So we'll just have to get together. Oh, I know what I was going to say. Okay, here it is. So back in 2014, because you agreed as part of my wedding gift is that you would help me write the Gospel of Sophia. Because it's this big idea, but I didn't have the capacity yet in a philosophical way that you do to begin to describe that. And we can talk about that whole process. That was a beautiful process. But somewhere in there, and we finished it, it was like, where is everybody? Nobody seems to care, or everything just seems so wonky. And that's when we discovered that people were falling for these false flags that were happening around the country. So we felt back in 2015 that we had to go in and figure out what the truth is. So I guess we were working on this particular chakra at that time because we really did find out this amazing truth. And once we got this truth, we knew exactly what we could do with it. So everybody's going to have to eventually get to a place where they speak truth, aren't they?
Absolutely. Or they will turn ugly like the animal that they have become.
Well, because the other day when you were doing your discussion on the eighth sphere, it clicked with me just like, oh, it's like a different dimension. These people will still exist alongside us in our world, but they're in a different dimension. Whereas we have our spiritual coat of armor that protects us. We have our heart chakra that brings the experiences and everything that we need in the world. We have discernment and clarity. We speak truth. And so what we're doing with that is we're building up our body for our next incarnation. Now, wrap me up.
Absolutely. And that's what meditation does. That's what initiation enlightenment does, is it basically builds with living stones a structure of your next body in a future incarnation. And so the deal is that meditation teaches you how to perceive properly. When you don't look out in the world and you just see a tree, you actually see all the forces and beings in time and space who had to work to create that tree. And when you do, you will become incredibly thankful, grateful. You'll probably drop to your knees and say, holy cow, I never understood how utterly profound a leaf on a tree is, or a grain of sand and what it has to go through. So it's about perception. And so that's what meditation will do for you. It will increase all of your capacities that are good capacities, and it will help you look at the lower vices that you have yet to conquer and turn that dragon into something that is a useful tool for you. For instance, when the wolf of Gubbio was attacking the town of Gubbio, St. Francis went there. And instead of killing the wolf, which they all asked him to do, he tamed the wolf, and it became the thing that drove the engine of the town. In other words, they tied him onto the mill, and this giant wolf then did the work of the people. This is what we have to do.
That's what Jeff Bezos is doing for me in our books.
And, one other thing about this series that we're doing, we started off giving probably the top 40 questions that people who have studied anthroposophy and Waldorf education that I've been involved with asked. But now we're going to a little bit different thing where we want to give little books that help people who are beginning on the path, but they have the deep knowledge to make sure that they don't just get sidetracked by some glib version of the spiritual reality. And so I'm really, really thrilled myself with what has come from this project that you created for us, and also the new direction it's going.
Is not a little book, and it's a big one. And that's what John and you are going to talk about today, Dweller on the Threshold. So we'll get back next week and let you two do that. And what I'm doing is, if you enjoy listening to John and Douglas discuss these topics that are by book, we do them by the book topic. You can go to Douglas Gabriel YouTube, and they are uploaded as we get them produced. But if you can't wait for the production, come over to Tyler Gabriel, and I'm putting up the raw videos there so it doesn't impede your spiritual progress. Okay. And we're thinking that if we want to hear from you, if you want more of the kind of Betsy and Thomas talking, but with the spiritual content, I don't want to waste your time if you don't want it. But if you do, it's something that we've been thinking that maybe we could be more practical in our approach, while never, ever stopping these high-level Goetheanum conversations that my boys are having that get me so excited when I listen. It's so high level, Okay, darling, I love you. You're just the best husband a woman could ever have. Thank you for being my playmate.
Thanks for being my producer.